Hi there, my name's Lauren Robertson, and if you want to know how to be a confident speaker, a speaker who grows your business and sells your products and services successfully from the stage, a speaker who travels the world meeting amazing people and seeing exotic locations, and a speaker who transforms lives from your place on the stage, then you have come to the right place. I'm so delighted to be here with you today, answering a question from one of you. I cherish you so much as a viewer, as a subscriber, and it's my absolute honour and pleasure to help you any way I can to grow as a speaker. I truly believe that the world will be a better place when more alternative voices are heard, when more people like you feel empowered to stand up courageously, to share your message, to take ownership of that power, and to help people in the process. You have something very special to share with the world, and it's my pleasure to help you do that. So, today's question comes from Michelle, and Michelle asks, how do you give a talk that truly moves people? And this is a really great question. I have a bit of an embarrassing story about giving a talk that truly moved people. I remember in about 2015, I was doing a talk at a spiritual centre that I'd spoken at many times before, and something quite dramatic had happened a few days earlier, where I had been reunited with my father after having not seen him for 12 years. And I learned so much from the experience of being reunited with my dad. I grew so much as a person in that process, and I shed so many tears. And I thought to myself, after I was reunited with my dad, this will make a great story to tell from the stage one day. So it was only about 2 or 3 days later, when I was speaking in this spiritual centre, I decided to make my central philosophy about the story of being reunited with my father. I won't go into the full story here. If you want to read about it, you can read about it in my book, The Medium and Manolos. Little plug there for me. But basically it was a really emotional time. So I got up on this stage and I really wanted to share the story. I really wanted to tell everyone what I had taken away from it, how I had grown as a person, how we had sort of found forgiveness for each other, and so on. And when I got up on the stage, I literally started to speak, and immediately my bottom lip started to go. You know the one when the tears are like that close to coming. And literally I was trying to get through this story, and I was absolutely bawling my eyes out within about 5 minutes. I was like, and I looked into the audience, and several people in the audience were crying as well. And some people were looking at each other awkwardly. Some people were moved emotionally, and some people really just wanted to move out of the room because it was so awkward watching me bawl my eyes out on stage, basically treating it as a therapy session. So I know a little bit of something about moving people from the stage, and on that instance I moved people too much, and I was moved myself too much by the experience that I'd had with my dad. It was too recent, it was too raw, and yet there's something in that story that remains true, which is that if you speak from the heart, and if you speak from what's true to you, and if you know your story, know your audience, know your purpose, know what you want to share clearly enough, you can sound very, very natural at telling a story that really moves people. And that was the mistake that I made, was that I went in completely raw. I had not rehearsed or practiced so that I could convey the essence of the story and move people the way I wanted to move them in a controlled way, rather than losing control myself and everybody crying, and it was just all a bit much. So when we talk about moving people with our talks, we're usually talking about one of two things. We're talking about moving people emotionally, or we're talking about moving people into action. When people are moved, it usually is to do with their feelings and their emotions, whether it's that you are moving them emotionally and getting them to empathize with you and to sort of go on the emotional journey with you of your story, or whether you want to move them into action to do something or to buy your products or services or to take some action during the duration of your talk. And so both of the ways that we get people to move is to do with how we make them feel. So when you want to move people emotionally, it is a great idea to tell a story because people see themselves in your story. People see themselves in the struggle that you've been through, because many of our struggles, even though they are personal, they are also universal. And so whenever you tell a story that seems very personal to you, there are going to be many, many people in the audience who can empathise with you as well. But don't make the mistake that I made and think that you can just get up and wing it. It's really important, if you want to move your audience, that you are doing so in a controlled way, in an intentional way, that you think about moving them as a ballet dancer or an opera singer or an actor in an emotional play would move someone, with a lot of rehearsal and a lot of practice and knowing how to deliver their line the right way and being really expert at what they're doing, and not moving them from a therapeutic place like I did, where I got up on stage and basically bawled my eyes out. Yeah, there's definitely a difference. And a lot of speakers, when they ask me about, like telling natural stories or being themselves on stage, they take that sometimes to mean that they don't need to practice it or rehearse it, or that they can just go up and sort of wing it, and that being themselves means under preparing. I definitely don't recommend that you do that for the reasons that we just talked about, because you may end up with an Alice in Wonderland style display and not get invited back to a certain place. So definitely, if you want to move people emotionally, think about the feeling you want to evoke within them. Think about the journey that you want to take them on with your story, and then choose a story that fits well within the context of your talk, in that particular segment of your talk, and make sure that you practice telling that story to evoke the particular response that you're looking for. And you can definitely record yourself telling this story. You can try emphasising different bits and pulling certain bits back. You can try adding a little bit of humour for comedy relief, and practice telling your story and then try it out on a few people and see how they feel about it. For me, the stories that move people the most when I tell them are inspirational stories. I love a good miracle. I love a good synchronicity. I love a good situation where it seemed like God or the universe or a higher power has intervened in some way. And I'm very lucky and blessed that loads of those things have happened in my life. So usually when I tell that kind of story about how I got my Hay House book deal, or how I met my fiance, or any of the wonderful things that I've had the joy of going through in my life, those are usually the stories that move people the most, because they're most authentic to me. They're most authentic to my own emotions and my own feelings, and parts of the story where I well up, I usually find my audience do as well. Parts of the story where I'm really enthusiastic and excited, usually my audience are coming right along with me. So think about who you want to be as a speaker, who you want to be in that moment, the emotion that you're going for, and think of a story that's going to help you convey that point or that emotion. When you want to move your audience into action, you're still going to use emotion, but when we want to move your audience into action, we're not going to tell an emotional story. We're actually going to embody emotion. What I mean by that is, if you want to move others into action, you have to move your own body into action. As the speaker, you are the leader of the group, and everybody in the audience will have a natural inclination to follow your lead, because you're up speaking and they're sitting down listening. So you're giving, you're in a proactive zone and they're in a listening or a receptive zone. So if you start to get really pumped and really enthusiastic, or even like a little bit angry, or you decide that you want to like call them on something that they're doing, or challenge them, or tell them that you're sick of something, when you start to bring the energy up of how you're being and how you're moving and how you're delivering the words that you're saying, that will be what moves your audience into action. Recently, I gave a talk down in England, and at this talk, when I watched the other speaker that was on the floor, she was doing a great job, but it seemed to me that the audience were a bit like lackadaisical, and the energy just wasn't there with them, and they were just sort of like, like sitting back in their seats. And she was doing great, the speaker, but the receptiveness wasn't there. So when I got up, I decided I was going to be bad cop, and I was going to call them on the fact that they were slouching in their chair, like you haven't taken any notes in the last hour, like just decided to start waking them up. And after the talk, it did cross my mind for a second when I was sitting in Starbucks, like drinking my cappuccino, like, did I go too far that time? Did I cross the line? But I actually opened my phone, and I had so many messages from people that had been at the event that said, I loved your talk was freaking amazing, I loved how you just, shot from the hip and called it as it is. So if you want to move people into action, you want to move them to buy something or to take some kind of action, a lot of the time calling them on what you see and bringing energy, enthusiasm, even sort of anger or that ranty sort of energy, just letting yourself go to that full crescendo is going to be what does it. Because when you move your voice up, when you move your body up, when you move into that space, they are going to follow you as well. So you move your audience by emotion. It's all about emotion. If you want to move them emotionally, be mindful in advance of the journey you want to take them on, the story you want to tell, how you want them to feel, and practice telling it in advance so that you can play with your story to get the right response. And then if you want to move people into action, it's all about moving yourself up into that energy that you want them to match you on. All right, so again, find the appropriate part of your talk near the close, or just after lunch, or if you see people starting to flag a little bit, that's when it's time to move into that energy. All right, my loves, this has been Lauren Robertson taking your questions here on the Speaker Superstar channel. If you haven't already, please do see the description box or the comments below for a link to a special free gift for you. I really hope that you enjoy it. Do catch me also on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram. If you're on my email list, you're going to be getting some messages from me there too. Lots of love, and I'll speak to you very soon. Bye.